Celtics Today is presented by Aura, a all-in-one digital safety tool. If you go to aura.com/chatsports, that's where you can begin your 14-day free trial. Welcome into Celtics Today. I am Will Scott, and it has certainly been an eventful offseason and an eventful week for the Boston Celtics. That's why I want to take a look at the roster outlook in this video, kind of go position by position to see where the Celtics are currently at. Here is who they brought in this week. So they signed Bruno Caboclo on Monday afternoon to a training camp deal, and then Monday evening they signed Noah Vonleh to a one-year contract. Both very interesting signings because neither player played in the NBA last season. Caboclo was in Brazil where he won the MBB MVP award, and then Vonleh was in China with the Shanghai Sharks. Caboclo had a very impressive summer league outing with the Jazz, got some NBA interest, decides to sign a training camp deal with the Celtics, and then Vonleh signed a couple hours after that in what was an eventful start to the week for the Boston Celtics. Now, what move did you like the most? Was it Caboclo or was it Vonleh? Type BC for Bruno Caboclo or type NV for Noah Vonleh. I like both signings. I really did, and I understand it wasn't the, flashy signing that I think a lot of Celtics fans wanted. I know a lot of C's fans want Dwight Howard or Hassan Whiteside or a proven backup center, but these were both depth signings. Both of these guys are going to be competing for a spot on the roster during training camp. Neither of them are guaranteed to make this team, so I like the moves. Bring them in, see what they can do, because both of them performed very, very well internationally last season. So here are the Celtics big men right now. Robert Williams III is the solidified starting center for this basketball team. And surprisingly, right now, Luke Kornet is slated to be the number 2 center on this team. He's a bit unproven. Vonleh, they bring him in. I have him ahead of Mfiondu Kabengele on the depth chart right now, just because Kabengele is on a two-way contract. Vonleh signed a one-year deal, and then Caboclo is on a training camp deal. He has some work to do if he wants to make this roster. Here's what Robert Williams III did last season, and obviously a priority for this team is getting him healthy, but he was outstanding. 10 points per game, 9.6 rebounds per game. And after signing that 4-year deal, a lot of people thought that it was an overpay, but it certainly looks like a good value deal for the Boston Celtics right now. Now, talking about Kornet, he signed a 2-year deal worth $4.5 million with the Celtics early on in free agency. He was kind of an NBA journeyman last season because he spent last season on 10-day contracts with Cleveland and Milwaukee before joining the Celtics. And he actually started in Maine, performed well there in his limited time in Maine, and then signed a rest of the season contract with Boston. Here's what Kabengele did during the Summer League, and he also spent some time last season with the Cavs, and he was very, very impressive in the Summer League with Boston. 14.8 points per game, 8.2 rebounds per game. Also very solid defensively, over 2 blocks per game. If you were asking me, I would say he was the MVP for the Celtics in the Summer League. So the question that a lot of Celtics fans currently have, who is going to emerge as the number 2 center on this team? Williams III is clearly going to be the number 1, but after that, it is going to get very, very interesting to see who's going to emerge as that guy to be the backup center on Boston. If you had to predict it, who do you think it's going to be? Is it Luke Kornet, type L? Is it Bruno Caboclo, type B? Is it Mfiondu Kabengele, type M? Or is it Noah Vonleh, type N, down in the comments section? It is the pinned comment on today's video. When ad break comes, go down, chime in. Who's going to be the backup center the first regular season game? I feel much better than I did at the start of this week about the Celtics center position because they have a lot more depth than they did. Bring in Caboclo and Vonleh, but you still have to go out and sign a backup center. That is a priority. That needs to be the top priority for Brad Stevens when you're looking at the rest of the offseason. Here are the available centers. You have Hassan Whiteside, who is my number 1 free agent target for the Celtics. Dwight Howard, LaMarcus Aldridge, Montrezl Harrell also available. It's going to be interesting to see what goes down, but Whiteside, I think, makes the most sense. He's very good defensively. He would fit well on the Celtics team. Now, before we get into more about the Celtics roster, go down, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we're all about the C's here on Celtics Today. Subscribing and turning on your notifications is the best way to stay in the loop when it comes to Celtics news and Celtics rumors. Let's break down these guards because they have a lot of depth here. Marcus Smart is going to be the starting point guard. That is what we have heard, even after the trade of Malcolm Brogdon. So you have Smart and Brogdon. Jaylen Brown as well, still on this team. Thankfully, they have not traded him for Kevin Durant. Derrick White also on this team still. He was also in Kevin Durant trade rumors. And then you have Payton Pritchard, J.D. Davison, Broderic Thomas. Payton Pritchard is going to be someone who I think has a pretty big year 3. Davison is on a 2-way deal. He was the Celtics' only draft pick late in the second round. Thomas unlikely to make the Celtics roster, but he's expected to be competing for a spot at training camp. Before we get into more about the C's, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Aura because they are keeping you safe online. We all do more online now than we ever have before. I never go to the store anymore. I'm buying everything online, which means my credit card could be compromised by any hacker at any moment. That's why I have Aura. They keep me safe online, and they are going to send you real near-time alerts on suspicious credit inquiries. If someone is using your credit card, they are going to alert you the second that happens. That's going to allow you to shop, bank, and work online privately and safely. Also going to keep your family safe as well. That's the link right there, 14-day free trial. Aura.com/chatsports. That link is going to be in the comments and the description of this video. Talking more about the Celtics guards, Marcus Smart coming off of a pretty good season, 12.1 points per game, 5.9 assists per game. And yeah, he's not the greatest shooter in the world, but what he's known for is his defense. You're talking about the defensive player of the year. He is outstanding for the Celtics, a very, very valuable member of this Celtics team. But when you're talking about Brogdon, you're talking about more of an offensive threat. 19.1 points per game, shot 44% from field goal range. And you look at his three-point shooting as well. He is very, very good in that area, much better than Smart. So if you had to pick a starting point guard, who do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be Marcus Smart, or is it going to be Malcolm Brogdon, type MS for Smart or type MB for Brogdon? I know that Brad Stevens has said it's going to be Smart. It should be Brogdon. I mean, he is just the better player. He's the better scorer. And we saw in the NBA Finals that the Celtics were lacking a point guard that can be a big scoring threat. Marcus Smart should get plenty of playing time. I mean, look at how valuable he is defensively. But who should get more minutes? It should be Malcolm Brogdon, who has been one of several really big additions for the Celtics in free agency, and he was acquired via trade, but Danilo Gallinari was a free agency addition. You signed Mfiondu Kabengele to a 2-way deal, Bruno Caboclo to a training camp deal, and then Noah Vonleh, you brought him in free agency earlier this week. Now, who was your favorite offseason addition? Go down in the comments section and let me know. It's certainly been interesting to see some of the guys that Brad Stevens and the Celtics have brought in. This was a basketball team that came this close to winning the NBA Finals, and they are much better already this offseason. Here's what Jay King said about the Celtics in terms of their plans for their rest of their available roster spots. The Boston Celtics are preparing to hold an open competition for their final roster spots at training camp next month, league sources told The Athletic. So I read this and I'm like, hey, should I go and try out for the Boston Celtics? Producer Trace, do you think I have a shot to make the Celtics roster?
I mean, it's an open invite, man. I think that you really do have a good shot of making the team if you do go try out.
I could low-key be a Payton Pritchard, man. Good ball handler, shooting threat. I think the Celtics should consider inviting me to this open tryout. I'll be on the next flight to Boston. I'm sure my bosses James Yoder and Brett Scott would be okay with me going and doing a Celtics Today in my tryout. Here's what Jay King also said. As of Tuesday, the Celtics mostly were expected to fill out the rest of their training camp roster with young veterans willing to vie for those spots. recent additions Noah Vonleh and Bruno Caboclo will be in that group, while last year's two-way player Broderic Thomas and former Kings draft pick Justin Jackson are viewed as strong candidates to join them. That coming from Jay King. And when you look at this current Celtics roster, it is loaded. It's one of the best starting fives in the NBA with Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, Robert Williams III, Jaylen Brown, and Al Horford. You also have Brogdon, Derrick White, Pritchard coming off the bench. You still need a little bit more depth at the center position, perhaps, but you have Grant Williams and Gallinari who could maybe play the small ball five. Before we leave, I want to show you our Celtics forwards. If we could pull that up on the screen, kind of go through who the forwards are on the Celtics team. We went over the centers. We went over the guards. Now let's take a look at the forwards, beginning with Jason Tatum, one of the best players in the Eastern Conference who, had a disappointing NBA Finals, but he's certainly going to be someone who has a really big 2022-2023 season. Might even win MVP. Grant Williams, you bring, you're talking about maybe extending him. He's going to be back. Al Horford, Danilo Gallinari round out that list. Thanks for watching this edition of Celtics Today. Appreciate you all watching and subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, go down, turn on your notifications. It's the best way to stay in the loop with your C's.